good friend of the program, Todd McShay. How are you, Todd?
I'm doing well, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we are 2 weeks away. This is it. What's
the weather supposed to be, by the way?
Say that again?
Are we going to get good weather?
Where, in Philadelphia?
That's a big one this year.
I'm turning my Philly go. Are we going to get good weather, Lo?
Should be a beautiful spring day.
Here we go. Very good.
In Philadelphia.
I don't know, Todd, if you know about Law. His nickname is Farmer's Almanac. That's what his nickname is. Yeah, he knows it right now. He knows exactly what's going to go.
Gray's Sports Almanac says the weather's going to be perfect.
There you go.
Well done.
There you go.
All outdoors.
Well, it better be, Todd, because there's going to be steps involved. Apparently, the prospects are going to be walking to the podium, down steps to go to the podium to get their jersey, from what I'm hearing.
Anything for the red carpet event, right?
I guess so. They better put some carpet out there. It is Myles Garrett, right? First name we're going to hear? Still? We're hearing this? What do you think?
I think so. It's got to be. I mean, this is the time of year where scouts start to nitpick, and everyone's got issues. And Myles Garrett wouldn't go on with Booger McFarland, and that a red flag with the Mike and Mike show, and it's just, there's always stuff.
Come on, Todd. Is that really a red flag? Because we were joking before the show here.
Nailed it.
That Law wanted me to ask you seriously, but he was joking before the show. Is that really that people might view this as a thin skin, and he's going to Cleveland, and he might lose more games in his first year than his whole life? Is that really a red flag?
I really don't think so.
Okay.
If it was a quarterback, I might look at it a little differently. In fact, I've kept a list of every guy who's had thin skin and has been really worried about it, and every single one of those quarterbacks on the list, and I'm not going to mention any names, but they've all been busts in the league. So, crazy stuff like that. But I don't, for a defensive lineman, I just don't think it matters. And I think he also is well aware of the fact that he's going to be the first pick and didn't want to deal with that issue. So. But that, to my point, that's how crazy things get around this time of year, is that everyone's looking for something little and trying to make something big out of it, because the reality is NFL teams are sitting in day-long meetings right now putting together their board. And so the only information people are getting is really after meetings when guys are exhausted and don't want to be on the phone, and I get some texts here and there and make a couple calls, and that's all the information I'm getting, and none of that am I going to use publicly until the draft anyway. So, right now it's kind of the quiet time where teams are really actually finally putting together their final boards, and I'll be surprised if that first pick isn't Myles Garrett to Cleveland. He's just too physically gifted. The tape is too good. The combine numbers were probably exceeded expectations based off the tape. And I think he's a lock.
And just to move down your mock draft board that we just showed to our television audience, Todd, you have defensive ends and linemen going top three. You've got it going with Garrett, and then you got Solomon going to San Francisco, and then Jonathan Allen going off the board third overall, and then Fournette fourth to Jacksonville. Why do you see it that way?
Well, I think the interesting one is that third pick with Chicago, because it easily could be Jamal Adams from LSU, who just ran in the low 4.4s at his pro day, and that was kind of the one outstanding question mark after he ran in the 4.5s at the scouting combine. And to me, he's one of the 5 best football players in this draft, and they have a need at that position. So if they wind up going with Adams, then you could see Jonathan Allen go number 4 to Jacksonville, which I think he'd be a perfect fit in that defense and bring power and the ability to stop the run and some pass rushing ability as well. So I think if Chicago winds up going with Allen as their 5 technique at 3, then Jacksonville could look and say, you know what, there's not a defensive lineman worth it. We want to be a power team. We want to put more support around Blake Bortles at the quarterback position if he's going to be our guy moving forward. Let's give him everything we can this year, and Leonard Fournette would be the one to do that. And if Fournette doesn't go forward to Jacksonville, then I think probably the parachute pick for him would be Carolina at number 8. I mean, Carolina's looking for a power back. They want a young guy. They could bring in Fournette. This is an offense that over 70%, I think it was 76% of their offense last year was inside zone and power O. So this is a team that loves that inside run game, and they want to take some of the inside carries off of Cam Newton for obvious reasons.
Todd McShay from the Worldwide Leader, ESPN draft expert, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. And then you've got Malik Hooker and Jamal Adams going 5-6. That's interesting. I mean, that Adams is obviously the healthy one right now, but you have the Titans taking a look at both and going with Hooker at 5. Where do you see on that one, Todd?
Yeah, I just think that he's a ball hawk, and he gets you the football back on offense is what he does, and he has great range and coverage. Now, there's also a scenario where they could go Marshawn Lattimore, the Ohio State corner. I mean, this first round, once again, the team up north is loaded, especially in the secondary. They're going to have 3 guys drafted from their secondary, Gary and Conley, at the cornerback position, probably going somewhere between pick 15 and 25. So three DBs from Ohio State are going to come off the board real quickly. And I think Lattimore is the best pure cover corner in the draft. And he easily could be the pick there at 5 to Tennessee or 6 to the Jets. So it's kind of all the same names. It's just a matter of how they wind up slotted. But certainly Lattimore or Hooker would make sense for Tennessee. And the Jets would sit there, and if they choose not to go quarterback, then I think it will be one of these defensive backs that we've mentioned.
So you're saying you believe, as we're 16 days away, that the Jets, when they're sitting there at 6, have the pick of any quarterback in the draft. That's what most likely is going to happen.
Yes, I think it's highly likely. And I don't know. I keep hearing differing reports, if you will, and nothing that I really think is substantial. What I do know is they're looking at it long and hard, that there seems to be some people in the building that like one of these top quarterbacks. I'm guessing that it's Deshaun Watson or Mitch Trubisky, because that would make the most sense to me. But there definitely is a push from some people in the building, from what I'm hearing, that for one of these quarterbacks. And it will be interesting to see, because I don't think if we do this, Mel Kiper makes up all these different mock draft games that we're stuck doing every year. And so he created this grade A mock draft where you just do it as you're the general manager for all 32 teams. And I just got done with it, and I didn't have one quarterback in the first round. So that's the struggle. All of these guys need time for varying reasons. And I just don't think it's the smart thing for the organization or the smart thing for the player to draft a quarterback into that New York market and have the pressure of being the 6th pick overall in the draft. What do you think? What are fans supposed to think if you draft Mitchell Trubisky out of North Carolina at the 6th overall pick, and we have this massive need at quarterback with no idea if any of these back-end guys can come in, like Christian Hackenberg, and be a starter? You think there's not going to be the pressure and just insanity in that market? And I know that they shouldn't be governed by that, but it exists. And I think they're asking for trouble if they wind up doing that, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, your compadre, Mel Kiper, says the Jets are going to do that. He's got Trubisky going to the Jets at 6 in the mock draft there, with Deshaun Watson falling down to the Browns at 12. And if they go Garrett, Deshaun Watson, I think the Browns that should walk off Costanza-like. That would be the end of that for their first round, should something like that happen. You have Deshaun Watson going to the Los Angeles Chargers. You think that if Watson, let's just say, because you say the Jets would take Jamal Adams in your mock draft, you think that if the Chargers have that position, that they could choose any quarterback in the draft or anybody best player available, that they would go and draft Phillip Rivers' replacement right there at the top of this draft?
Now, I'm not sure that they would, but I think that's the kind of place and situation where one of these young quarterbacks that needs time to develop, like Watson or Trubisky, that would be a good situation for them. I also think Arizona at 13 would be a good situation, or you get down towards the bottom with Kansas City at 27 or New Orleans at 32. That's where these quarterbacks need to go. Now, it's probably not going to all play out that way, and unfortunately, at least one of them will probably be forced into early duty as a rookie. But to me, it feels like a better spot, especially for a Chargers organization. Phillip Rivers, we have no idea how long he's going to be around. It's probably not more than 2 more years. You want to have – moving to L.A., again, business should have nothing to do with football decisions, but you want to have a quarterback that's ready in the organization that you're developing to be the face of the franchise moving forward, with or without the move to LA. But certainly that move, it would make for a better situation for the organization. So to me, it would make sense. But again, they could sit there at 7 and go with a defensive back if Malik Hooker or Jamal Adams or one of those guys were to fall, or they also could sit there and take a wide receiver like a Corey Davis out of Western Michigan or Mike Williams out of Clemson.
Couple more minutes left with Todd McShay here on the Rich Eisen Show. 16 days until we get some solid answers to everything that we're just going back and forth about right here. And then on the running backs front, you've got McCaffrey going second off the board after Leonard Fournette to Law's Eagles. You'd like that, Chris Law. I'll tell you that, man. Yep. I got to tell you, Todd, just at the, I've seen, as you know, over a dozen combines now in person. And McCaffrey, I thought he had the best route running of anybody, wide receiver or running backs at that combine this year. He was spectacular.
He's unbelievable. I mean, you can argue, I would argue that Dalvin Cook from Florida State, his tape in terms of just ability to create yards and make guys miss, he's more explosive. But you add in the fact that Dalvin Cook has a couple shoulder injuries, has some concerns in terms of who he surrounds himself with off the field, has a high fumble percentage. And then you look at Christian McCaffery, whose tape is still really, really good and not far off of Cook's. And the fact that you're getting a guy who he's not 20 carries a game, but he could be 10, 12, 15. And then you legitimately have a second position on offense you can play him. There's not many guys that I've evaluated where I said, okay, he's a running back and he's also a slot receiver. He can play two positions. Then you get to the point where you look at the versatility in the return game if you want to use him that way. And then you talk to David Shaw, who I believe is on your draft coverage, and I'm sure he'll lay it all out for you there. But I've done a couple of Stanford games, and I don't know that I've ever spent time with a head coach that has said more positive things about an individual and what he brings to the program, from the work ethic every day at practice, 100 miles an hour, how good of a teammate he is, how loyal he is, how important everything is to him, how professional he behaves, and just the professionalism that he brings to the table. I just think a player like that doesn't get out of the top 20, and Philadelphia is looking for individuals like that. I know people in their front office, and they care a lot about that football character. And I also know that offensively they want weapons and versatility. So to me, he's a perfect fit in Philly if he lasts there. And if he does go beyond Philly, then there's a few other teams right behind that would make him a pick. And I don't think he'd get past Tampa at 19.
Todd, love having you on. Let's do it again. Maybe draft week if you're free. This would be great.
All right. Let's do it, man.
Okay, Todd. Thanks for coming out. You right back at you. At McShay13 on Twitter. Todd McShay here.
The Rich Eisen Show. Weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.